Powered by Go Goat Sports and in partnership with TSN, this is Season 3. It is episode 33 of the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast, presented by our title sponsor, Canadian Club Whiskey. We've got Rick Tocchet, who, as everybody knows, is a TNT analyst, former NHL player, head coach. Looking forward to, I'm sure, Ray, getting back onto a bench in the near future, you know, as he'll talk about. You can tell he's having fun with that group, right? No different than our experiences at TSN, but coaching's in his blood. And it makes a lot of sense, given that he's been out for a bit now. Somebody is going to invite him back onto a bench.
I can't imagine it wouldn't happen. I'm surprised it hasn't happened.
Yeah.
You know, and yet there is a pull to not being stressed out of your brain all the time. Like, look at these coaches by the end of the year. They're all worn down. Like we're tired because of, you know, we have a busy schedule, but their stress level is off the chart. Like, so I don't know. Maybe he doesn't get back in and he goes, hey, this is fun enough. But it seems like for those guys, if you're a coach, you're kind of always a coach.
Where are you? Where are you today? You're
I'm in New York.
Back and forth. Did you stay in New York?
Yeah, because Dregs, TNT has the game sixes, the way the TV deal works. And so we have to wait to see if there are game sevens. And so I could have flown home today, Thursday. And then if there's a game 7 Saturday, I would have had to come back for it. So I would have had to fly back Friday. And 12 hours of flying and across the border, and it just seemed like a terrible idea.
Yeah. Headlines presented by our friends at Boston Pizza. Boston Pizza's got meal deals for everybody. Pizza, pasta, wings, salad. Such a selection. Pick it up, get it delivered to your door. Either way, Boston Pizza, BP, will make sure all of your people are happy tonight. So the Hart Trophy finalists have been announced, Ray. And they go in no particular order other than this order. You've got Austin Matthews, Connor McDavid, and Igor Shesterkin. I mean, the first two, I think, were fairly obvious. Is Igor Shesterkin, as a finalist, a surprise to you or not at all?
Well, only because he's a goalie. But that's it. I mean, look, I'm doing this Ranger series with Pittsburgh, and he had a couple of really crappy nights in Pittsburgh. But I'm firmly convinced that the Rangers didn't think they were going to be this good this year. And the reason they ended up with 110 points in the first half of the year, Shesterkin saved them. And in the second half of the year, he saved them just a little bit less. So I have Shesterkin on my MVP ballot. Of course, I have McDavid and Matthews too. But I think it's a justified recognition that he be on the ballot.
How about Sidney Crosby hit you just? Yeah, no, he's on my ballot too. As you're mentioning that, I'm wondering, are we supposed to talk about this? We're
not supposed to talk about the winners.
Yeah, okay. But I agree. I mean, the three guys you mentioned, Matthews, McDavid, Shesterkin, all on my ballot. And as we talked about in the last episode of the podcast, man, it was a grind, a legit chore to go through the awards ballot this year, wasn't it? But that's a good thing, right? Because it means that, you know, there are so many qualified candidates for the Hart, for the Norris, you know, the Calder, go down the list. It was a fun exercise, but it was a tough one.
Well, I would say, I mean, I think I've been doing this now 5-ish years, 6, 7 years, something like that. This felt like the hardest year for me to, I mean, there's a couple guys that are just in each thing, like, gee, Roman Josi and Cale Makar on the Norris. Gee, that was tough. McDavid and Matthews. Geez, that was tough on the Hart, right? Like those, but then you start grinding into it and you're like, there's 8 or 10 guys. And it's really a pretty cool thing. It's fun to do.
All right. So again, you mentioned that you're in New York. You're doing the Pittsburgh Penguins New York Rangers series. We haven't heard from Department of Player Safety as we record episode 33 here. So a disclaimer. And by the way, we're not going to talk about Toronto and Tampa Bay or Edmonton and Los Angeles because those series might end and the podcast will be dated. We'll do the deep dive in episode 34. How's that?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
set the scene on whatever the next series look like. But you essentially had the front row seat for the Jacob Trouba hit on Sidney Crosby. I've looked at all the video angles that have been supplied on social media. I feel badly that Sidney Crosby couldn't finish that game, but it sure didn't look like anything more than a minor penalty to me. What did you see?
Well, okay, so live, I see the hit, and my first reaction is, man, he fell funny. Like I'm looking at his legs, his ankle, his knee, because his legs kind of buckle out. So I'm aware of the contacts in the upper body, but I think, geez, that's kind of awkward the way he fell.
Yeah.
So he goes back to the bench. Now, to my right is the Penguins bench. I don't see anything because past 4 or 5 guys, you can't hear anything and you can't see anything down there.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed that Malkin takes a shift instead of Crosby. And I'm like, what the hell is he doing out there with those 2 guys? That line. And I'm like, uh-oh. So I check my monitor, which has the player tracking, and Sid's got a red mark by his name, which means he's left the playing surface. So we know he's back in the room. I look at it on replay, Dregs. I'm telling you, I can't get to the point where I think it's suspension worthy. Now, my Twitter mentions from Pittsburgh, have me, every name in the book. And that's fine. I understand that they're fans. However, I think it's a 2-minute penalty at most. When Trouba, and if people could take their fan hat off, and I'm gonna tell you what happens as a player is that you commit to a play, and the play happens. Do you know what the time frame is? It's like a second. It's not 8 seconds. It's not 5 seconds. It's not 3. Trouba goes to commit to the hit on the play on Crosby because he's in. First of all, he may know it's Crosby. He probably doesn't. He knows it's a Pittsburgh guy. He probably knows it's Crosby because he's on the ice against him a lot. He goes to commit the hit. Sid's going to avoid the hit. Like, why are you going to take a hit when you don't have to? He avoids the hit. And that's where I think Trouba's elbow is a little bit high for that play. And that's why it's a 2-minute penalty. I don't think it's, I can't get to the point. It's more than that. And I hate that they release it's an upper body injury. I hate that.
Yeah.
I mean, the playoffs, hockey, everything is better when Sid's involved.
Yeah.
But to me, it was nothing more than 2. I can't get there.
I'm with you. I'm with you. Now, it was a game changer, right? I mean, it certainly, impacted the Penguins and maybe motivated, gave the momentum that the New York Rangers needed. Can it be a series changer? I mean, the Penguins, and we're assuming if Sid isn't available moving forward, well, I mean, that's just flat out bad for hockey. But is this significant enough to be a major series turning point for the New York Rangers?
Well, I think so, for 2 reasons. The Crosby line has been so utterly dominant.
Oof.
The Rangers don't seem to have an answer for him and for Jake Guentzel. I mean, if there's a playoff game and Jake Gensel's playing it, he's going to score. Yeah. Like, it's crazy. Yeah. I think it's 32 goals in 56 career playoff games. And I'm telling you, when you watch Jake Guentzel, he is not the fastest guy. He's certainly not the strongest guy. He doesn't have a great shot, but he can 40 goals in the regular season. Now he's got 6 in 5 games. I love watching him play. He's got courage. He's a chirpy little guy too, which I really like.
Yeah,
he's super competitive. But with Crosby out, now everything changes in that lineup. Malkin has to play on that line. Carter has to move up a line. Teddy Bluger has to move up a line. So all of a sudden, it's not the same. And it's not like you're taking out a mid-6 guy. You're taking out Sidney Crosby. He's been next to Cale Makar, the best player in the playoffs. And the second reason I think it can be series changing, the Rangers finally seem to get it through their coconuts that they've got to get to the front of the net and make the puck difficult for Louis Domingue to see. There's a reason, with the respect given to a guy that's come into a really tough spot, that Louis Domingue is the third string goalie. Right? He's the third option. And that doesn't mean he's not an NHL guy, because I think he is. But to carry a series, he's not been put under the pressure spot yet. Now, for the first time in Game 6, the pressure will feel on Domingue's shoulders. I think he's having the time of his life, and he should. He's done a great job. But now it's different, because if you lose 6, now you got to roll over for Game 7.
Right.
And I'm telling you, the Garden last night was like 19,000 people watching a movie in the first half. You know how quiet a movie theater is? That's what it was like. As soon as they score the first goal, it was like, it started to, and then they scored 90 seconds later, and it was pandemonium in there. It's my favorite time to be in an arena, when the home team scores consecutive goals, because it just explodes.
You know, you talked about, you know, players having the time of their lives. How about Carter Verhaeghe? 5 points for the Florida Panthers in that win over the Washington Capitals. And yeah, I thought it was an interesting ad for the Florida Panthers. I mean, Carter Verhaeghe is, you know, I think consistently been improving, you know, seemingly year after year.
Right.
But what a fit. And talk about making most of an opportunity. You know, this kid has turned out to be a real nice player.
Well, it fit, yes, opportunity, and then taking advantage of the opportunity.
Yeah.
Because when he left Tampa did not want to lose him, but they didn't have a nickel of cap space to pay him. Yeah. So Florida had seen him, they'd scouted him, and zap, he's in Florida. He probably would have been this successful in Tampa. They just didn't have any cap room for him. So he goes to Florida, and now he's kind of bounced around the lineup a bit. Andrew Brunette uses him in different spots. But, and 5 points in a playoff game, you're down 3-0. Like, it's one thing if you get 5 points in an 8-1 win. They're down 3-0 in the game. And this comes off a 2-goal game where you got the winner in overtime. So, man, what a ride Florida is, right? Like, they're, you know, I don't know how many comeback wins they had, 26, 27, something like that. It doesn't seem possible that that's a strategy in the playoffs, but here they are. They're 1 win away.
All right, officiating. We're going to talk a little bit more about this when Rick Tocchet joins us here on the podcast. But you're at ice level. You know, it's pretty clear that the game is being called tighter, maybe more tight than expected. I'm not sure about that. Or is it a combination of just the sensitivity and the environment, the atmosphere that is hyped up when you're in the Stanley Cup playoffs?
I think the game's being called more closely to the regular season standard than I've ever seen.
Which is good, right?
Oh, I like it. I didn't like the other day when I saw the box score from Toronto, Tampa, and there was 12 minors, like 12 power plays. I'm like, what the hell's going on there? And if these guys, you know, you can complain that, oh, you got to let the guys play, but the guys got to figure it out. If they're calling it this way, figure it out. So here we are last night. We're in New York. 30 seconds into the game, Trouba hits Jake Gensel into the boards, gets a boarding penalty, but on the same play, Kreider slashes Crosby going to the net. 5-on-3. They were both good calls. They didn't bail out of one because they'd already called a penalty. And to me, if they're penalties, you got to call them. And so for the games that have too much and people are complaining, there's no flow. Hey, if you're the players, unfortunately, you got to figure it out. Because my biggest complaint is when I hear let the players play, what that means is let them commit penalties and don't call them. That's garbage. Like, why are you dumbing down the game? Play to the skill that we've cultivated in the sport.
Thought on the Colorado Avalanche, who moved on with a sweep over Nashville. Interestingly, Nate McKinnon is a superstar in the NHL, and he refers to Cale Makar, who is also a superstar in the NHL, as potentially being the best defenseman the National Hockey League has ever seen. Now, he's not saying he is right now. He's saying that there's the potential of Cale Makar even elevating his game beyond where it is right now, developing throughout his career to being the best D-man ever. I mean, that's incredible praise from a teammate, but a guy that knows a whole lot about the sport. I mean, is Cale Makar trending in that direction? I'm not expecting you to answer it and say, yes, he's going to be the best ever, but he just continues to get better, right?
What does he not do? And what does he not do at an elite level? Halfway through the year, Jared Bednar started using him killing penalties, right? So there's more ice time.
Yeah.
Of course, anytime he's got the puck on his stick, the other team's in terror because he could do so many things with it. He's strong. He's physical. Like a lot of the people today never watch Bobby Orr. And, I was 12 years old when Bobby retired. And one of the things that people always talked about was how complete Orr was. Yeah, like we could all see the highlights of his skating and his puck handling and his scoring and all that stuff.
Yeah.
He was my favorite player, growing up. But Makar has the Orr impact on the game.
Mm-hmm.
And so in relatively short order, he's made himself into a player that's must-see TV.
Yeah.
And when teams, this is how I value or put value on a player's importance is the other team game planning against him?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer is 100% yes.
Yeah.
I will say one other thing about the Avs. I don't know if you saw this picture yesterday. I'm sure if you did, it would have sat well with you. Jared Bednar on a tractor cutting his lawn.
Loved it.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, that's right up your Saskatchewan roots right there. He's out there. He had his trucker hat on. He looked so happy. And now they get 10 days off probably until they got to start.
Yeah. All right. Headlines presented by our friends at Boston Pizza. Thanks to BP for helping us out in episode 33. Our interviews on Ray and Dregs are brought to you by our pals at Canadian Club Whiskey, who are asking, are you over beer? Why not try a refreshing CC ginger ale next time you're having a drink or watching a game? And Ray, the CC and ginger ale mixed and ready in a can is now available pretty much across Canada. So you and I have had the opportunity to crack one of those or mix it fresh. But either way, you are getting a real good beverage with CC and ginger in a can.
Today is an off day, and it seems like one of those days.
Small circle day, right? You said that earlier. Small circle day for Ray.
Yeah, this so for those of you that don't know the small circle, we're going to steal this from our good friend Bob McKenzie. We'd be on the road for a long time, and we'd say, hey, Bob, what's up today? Small circle day. You're not in it. Which basically meant it was a day for Bob. And that's what I'm doing today. This is a small circle Ray day.
All right, once again, joined on the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast by Rick Tocchet, who is a terrific analyst on the TNT panel. Man, Talk, you guys have a lot of fun, but you break down the game. I mean, so there's a good, healthy amount of hockey analysis there. But you're a former player. You're a former NHL coach. You will coach again. So when you're sitting on that panel and you're analyzing games, nothing compares to the juice that you get, right? When you're playing or when you're coaching, or even in Ray's case, he's between the benches. So how much do you miss it sitting in a studio?
Well, you've the competitiveness, right? The whether you're trying to break down the film, but usually you're in the competitive juices of a dressing room, right? In the coach's room. Hey, they're doing this. We got to do this. Hey, what matchup do we want? So you miss that part. So as an analyst, you're really watching the game, breaking that down. But the competitiveness, and you can ask Ray, it's always there. I don't care if you're, coach or a player. It's something that you do miss. But this is fun doing it. I'll tell you what. I have a blast being on the other side.
When you're sitting there, are you coaching while you're analyzing?
Yeah, I find myself as the play's going on, you're talking to your panels because we're watching the game, right? And you're saying, hey, they're giving up the slot shots. Why won't they do this? Like you're saying that to yourself. Like, this is what I would do. You're not criticizing the coach or the players or nothing. You just it's just who we are, right? Why are the Rangers doing this when Pittsburgh's doing that? I find myself doing that every once in a while. But at the end of the day, it's a lot of fun because, we just, it's like sitting in a bar talking to your buddies, and then all of a sudden the red light comes on and you kind of tell them what you just talked about during the when you're in the game.
When you, in your time you've been away from coaching, do you watch other coaches? Are you always trying to, think about, okay, I did this, but maybe I would do that is that always going on?
Absolutely. I think you got to, as a coach, always reinvent yourself. I'm lucky enough. I talk to Craig Berube almost every day. And so I'm on the outside, but, we talk, what about this, what this? So I get that. Once in a while, I talk to John Cooper, Travis Green. There's a bunch of guys I talk to, and we talk hockey. So I'm always learning, Ray. I think coaches always have to reinvent themselves every year. I think you can't be the same guy. Some coaches, sometimes it's nice to take a year off. If you coach for a long time, you take a year off, you come back, it's just, you feel fresh and you have more ideas. So that's really having this time off and joining TNT. It's given me a new perspective, and definitely I'm learning all the time. And you try to learn from the coaches, especially now, like the coaching in the playoffs right now. You always like to learn from these guys.
I laughed when you said, take a year off. And so the first thing I think is, oh my God, it must be nice to sleep and not stress. And we go talk to the coaches before the game. Yesterday we're in New York, and Mike Sullivan doesn't have much of a voice left. Gerard Gallant's talking really quiet because his voice is going. They're both so stressed, and you're like, it must be nice just to sit there and watch. Or would you rather have the stress?
Well, it's nice to be on this side for a while. The stress is, the good stress. That means you're winning, but it's tough. Listen, a coach, I'm telling you, those guys get home, after a game, 2, 3, 4, they probably don't get to sleep till 3:30. They get up early. They have their coaches. So your mind is always going. And the key is if a coach can just kind of park it for a few hours to get them fresh. But you can tell the guys, coaches, you can tell they're tired sometimes. And it's hard to leave it at the rink. It's really hard to leave it at the rink.
One discussion we've had so I'm bouncing between two series. So talk to the 4 coaches, Carolina, Boston, and then Pittsburgh, New York. And there's been disallowed goals in each series. Yeah. And the one theme I get, and I'm really curious what your thought is that the coaches don't think it should fall on them to make that challenge, whether it's a good or not good goal, because it comes down to judgment. And across the board, those 4 guys have said in just various ways that it really comes down to opinion as to what is or isn't goalie interference, or, not even necessarily a penalty, a good or goal or no good goal. I'm in favor of it making it like the NFL. Every goal that goes in the net, the league takes charge of it. Like, why they take charge in the last minute of the period? Why not take charge all the time? 95% of the time, the goal's going to count anyway, like with no review. So there's a few minutes of challenge or no challenge. What's your view? You're in the media. You were a coach. You're going to coach. You're going to challenge. You're going to lose. You're going to win.
I actually really feel like Roddy Brindamore the other day, even John Hines, I think we all agree it should have maybe not been a goal, but they challenged it, and then the team actually scored the next power play, right?
Right.
Both were crucial in the game. All I can say is, Ray, in the summer, there's 3 days where I remember when I was coaching, Steve Peters, our video coach, we would spend 3 days. We'd have the coach's general manager, and we'd watch everything, interference, offside, and we'd have exercises. And I'll tell you, we disagreed on a lot of them. So I could imagine the opinion, like the panel the other day, I think 2 of us said goal, the other 3 said no. So it's never 5, unless it's obvious. But It's hard, man. And it's the pressure's on the video coach. Like everybody thinks it's the head coach. They don't have a lot of angles. You got to rely on your video coach, and you got to go to the grave with this guy because, and I did with Steve Peters. I thought he was terrific at it. And if he said challenge, I didn't question it. I challenged, and I'll live and die by his decision. So it's important that these guys get together in the summer. But still, at the end of the day, it's been a wild playoff with those challenges. Like I've actually been pretty good calling it, but it's you can go 50-50 on a lot of these ones, and I can understand Rod Brind'Amour's frustration.
I will say that when Rod had the quote the other day, said I would have bet my life on that. That would have been a tough bet, eh? You would have lost.
Yeah, I think I would have bet my life that much, but I would have bet a little bit of money on that. Roddy was right, but not my life. No chance.
No, that's a tough one. That's a tough one. Hey, take us into the world, the mind of Wayne Gretzky. I mean, you've known Wayne for a long, long time. You've been real close friends for a long, long time. What's it like? Not just participating in a panel with him as an analyst, but sitting there and watching these games. Like, is there stuff that comes out of his mouth where you're like, geez, I didn't even see that? Do you get a lot of that?
Yeah, Wayne's really good at, he likes us to kind of dictate where we're going with stuff. If there's a controversy or what team, and he likes to come in after and just kind of give his, Wayne Gretzky type of answer. Like, what he does is I was asking him the other day on the set, I said, Toronto was going in game 5, Marner, and a lot of pressure on Matthews and Tavares, that group. What did when the heat was on you, the spotlight was on you, and you go home, and what did you do to try to alleviate that pressure? And he talked about routine and going to dinner, relaxing, this the stuff that some stories he told us, and that's what I want, like from Wayne Gretzky. What did you do in these situations? He's better at that stuff. He likes the stories. He's not going to give he's not going to tell you who's going to win very often because I call him Switzerland on the thing, and
right.
That's right. He's the ambassador of hockey, and he's very positive with everything. He'll never cut up anybody. He's very positive. He did a video the other day on Barkov and Hubro, and he was kind of nervous to say it, but he wasn't ripping them. It was an isolated instance where they didn't really back check, and Washington scored a goal. And he said in the playoffs, everybody's got to back check. Everybody's got to track it. And he wasn't taking a shot at them. He was just taking a shot at the fact that NHL hockey is hard, and you got to do the little things. And that's the stuff I want to hear Wayne Gretzky say.
Well, it's funny when he does say anything, like literally anything. I'm interested because of who he is, but also I know he sees the entire picture at a level none of us could see. I don't know what you saw on the ice talk. I saw a whole bunch of guys in the way of where I was trying to go. I'm like, man, there's all these big guys and they're in the way. And Gretz had this helicopter view of it all. And when he's on the panel and he does that,
you want to listen.
That's what that's what I want to listen to because it's really cool stuff.
Yeah. It's fun, honestly. They have the green room and the couch, and we have all the games on, and we're watching you guys and stuff. And he comes up he just bounces around, and they'll say, hey, this guy should have done this, or if I have the coach, maybe put this guy on. He doesn't like, I'm more like boisterous and, me, Biz, and we're always talking and Anson, but he's listening. And then the odd time he'll just throw these comments out and you're like, yeah, you're right, man. I didn't think of that. So yeah, that's really what he's phenomenal at.
When you just said that, I worked with Brett Hull at NBC, and if Hully wanted to do TV, he could be just the best, right? But he would say a couple of things, and I'd go like, damn, I played for 18 years. I never even thought of that. And you'd think maybe I couldn't do it, but I might have thought of it. Yeah. So like one time I remember they're on this team's on a power play, and there's no passes. Like it's always around the outside. And Hully just looks at the TV. He's kind of half paying attention. And he looks, he's like, why is that guy standing over there? You can't pass to him. And he just points on the screen for the guy to move to a spot. And like 3 seconds later, the guy moves there, the pass goes, and he shoots. And he goes, see, it's so easy. And I was dying because just his delivery, right?
Yeah.
But that's what those guys see that we never could.
Yeah. Mario's the same way. Mario, being in Pittsburgh, he would, like, we actually had to, like, he never wanted to come down and bug us in the coach's room. And I was like, Mario, get down here. Like, because I was running the power play at the time. And he had more fun those years we won the cup because he felt involved, but he didn't say much. The odd time he say, hey, listen, power play, if they're doing this, I would do this if I was the half wall guy. And I go, you're right. So I'd go in the meetings like it came from me. Like, hey, boys, I got something for you guys. No, Mario Lemieux, right? But yeah, those guys, sometimes it's hard for those guys to be coaches because it's hard for them to explain real time. Like it's hard for them to be an X and O's guy because they just are instinctive guys. And that's why sometimes those guys don't like to coach because it's hard for them to explain to the average player.
One topic, curious, like, we were different players, but I'm curious on your view of this so this year, the playoffs are called extremely tight.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
A couple of times in each of the last two games I did, the Boston-Carolina game and the Ranger-Pittsburgh game last night, there was a scrum and one guy came out of the scrum with a penalty. I like it because I think that kills the scrums. I'm curious, like when you get into scrum talk, you were not, I was kind of getting on the other side of it just in case I got in the way of one of those hams.
The side punch?
Just one of these little swats. And I just was kind of over there. So, like, what do you think of the way the games are officiated?
I'm with you guys. I hate the scrums. We did a thing on the set the other day on TNT. I can't stand them. Listen, I was that guy, like, we're losing you guys 2-0 Islanders or something, and there's a scrum. I'm going in there, and I'm going to try to look for aspirations and try to generate some stuff. I get the temperament. Sometimes you're trying to change, and we were talking to Don Kowarski, but I get it. Like, so Don Kowarski would come to, hey, talk, I'm going to give you that freebie. The next time you're going. So I love the communication with the refs. I think it should be done earlier in the game. I'm not going to stand the scrums. The guys going behind face wash, I'm going to take the first guy. That will end it. I'm with you, Ray. And I think they've done that. I don't think I've heard any coaches. I know you're more close to the coaches than I am right now. Are the coaches complaining? Are they complaining in the press conference before or after? I haven't seen that on my end, and I like that. So, and that's something egregious where a guy's going in and he punches a guy. I don't care what happens after, Ray. Get that guy in the penalty box. That will stop it because I'm with you. And, I said to Darren before he came on, I said, poor Ray, he doesn't want a 3.5 hour game with 17 scrums. It slows the game down. I'm with you.
I think the playoffs have been just like a freaking race car. Like there's been so many great games. Like the games last night, everybody came back to win.
Yeah.
All three games, all three comebacks. That never happened before. I think the league's in great shape with what we watch.
Now, have you found the trend? It seems like when teams are taking penalties, they'll take 3 or 4 in a row. Like usually it's like, team will take a couple and then the other one team will get apart. But the refs aren't afraid to call 4 in a row. Like it seems to me that's the common theme. Like chunk power plays, not one, 1-1-1-1-1. It's like, okay, one team's gonna get 4 in a row. The other team gets there too, and the other team will get. And whether it's warranted or not, I think sometimes, and I understand they're calling the NHL standard. I get it, and I'm all for it. But if you've been on the power play 3 in a row, and that fourth one they're going to call where it's a kind of a marginal call, I think you got to sometimes you got to turn a blind eye to that because it's not even near the puck. But they're not afraid to call it, and I guess the players are going to have to adjust to that right now.
Well, last night again in New York, the Rangers didn't get their first power play till into the third period. Pitt had 3, I believe, at that point, and then the Rangers got one. They didn't score, but and then Hedl actually scored on the power play, turned out to be the winner. But it was just what you said. It was a clump of penalties, and that was the penalty. That was the way.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh doesn't take any penalties. They're really super disciplined. They don't get off their game very much.
No. Yes, like Carolina, were they the least penalized team I think in the league, and. Yep. And that time they took 9 power play, 9 penalties. When Boston won, the game was a game 3 or 4.
Game 4, yeah.
And it's like that's why I think Roddy was frustrated because we don't take a lot of penalties. They're very disciplined too, very fast. They play the right way. But to me, and to me, Calgary getting back, and I'm not to bounce around. Calgary has stopped playing that scrum hockey, and they're playing hockey now, and they've dominated that. I said 5-on-5 Calgary will win the series, but if you get in these 4-on-4 situations, power play, then you get Dallas involved because Ottinger's been unbelievable. Like to me, he's been really one of the playoffs. it's the teams that can play 5-on-hot and be disciplined. I'm not saying not be aggressive. I'm not saying to hit people, but the teams are more disciplined are going to be more successful as the series go on.
Hey, why don't both of you give me your thoughts on the Darnell Nurse suspension? I mean, was it just a simple automatic? I mean, headbutt, you can't do it if it's regular season. It's maybe a 2 or 3 game suspension. What do you think?
Well, the optics look bad. He lunged, right? I guess, we were saying today at breakfast, if I was his lawyer, what would you say? Well, I think he went to lunge with his shoulder and his head came up. That would be my excuse for it. But, you got to call it. I mean, if you don't call that, then guys will be able to, what's the gray area with the guy hitting, your head with the headbutt? And there hasn't been a lot of headbutts over the years. I've headbutted Bob Probert about 20 years ago. And I think I got 10 minutes. I think I got a misconduct. Like I didn't even get suspended. So, but now you got to call that stuff. You have to.
Well, yeah. I think that I thought it was warranted a suspension because it was outside the play as well. And the other thing is, like, to me, when I see that, and like early in the playoffs, Jared Spurgeon got fined for cross-checking somebody in the Cavs, yes. and I'm like, I think those are great examples of the emotion and how it gets away from you in the playoffs that just doesn't in the season.
Right.
Like everybody is just wired so tight and everything means so much that sometimes the wires cross. And so Nurse makes that play. And now Edmonton's got to stay alive without their best defenseman.
Yeah.
Like that's a hard punishment. But I thought it was a suspension.
Didn't you think, Ray, when you're playing those, like you're talking about the heated wires crossed, like, the way it is, you're in a building, it's loud, the other team's kind of giving it to you, and the coach is mad behind the bench, players are yelling at each other, we got to get back in the game. And then I don't care what player you are, whether you're a tough guy or just a skill guy, you get in those moments and everybody's like, that pressure in your head, everybody's telling me I got to do this, and all of a sudden you might just go, I don't know, like it's a reaction, right?
Yeah.
And it's not like guys are doing it maliciously. I don't think people understand that the pressure and people are in your head and screaming and yelling. And that's why the benches that I've always been on, and as assistant coach too, is that the guys that are really calm, like they take a breath. I mean, not saying you can't be intense and urgency, but they know how to get themselves down. Like, so they don't do something stupid because, I've done it in my career. Like, the coach is screaming at you, everybody's yelling, the crowd's yelling at you, the other team's beat. So you go out there and you might do something that's just a little bit reactionary out of your, that's what I think.
Well, I think maybe another example is like people, like media writes about, oh, this is premeditated or he went out there to do this. Man, you're just going out there and like everything's reaction and fast. And sometimes you do something and like, I don't even really know what the hell I did. Like, I don't even know why I did that. And it just happened. And sometimes there's a price to pay for it. I do have to ask something. I got to ask you something here. You're in a hotel. I assume you're in Atlanta.
Yes.
Did you on purpose match your shirt with the curtains?
Listen, I just got a dry cleaning bill for about, thank God I got this TNT so I can pay my dry cleaning bill. The price, I think I've worn this you're probably the same boat. I probably wore this t-shirt about times today, or last week here. But no, I and I'm sorry. I didn't.
I did ask the guys that I'm working with. I said, I hope you like this shirt. You're going to see it a lot in the next 10 days. That's all I got, man.
That's awesome.
Like what's this? Like $12 at the Four. We are seeing the Four Seasons. Like this, I think it's $12.
Nice. Yeah.
So,
perfect. Hey, Talk. We'll let you go with this. Is Biz driving you crazy? I mean, Paul Bissonnette. He's a little quirky. He's a little bit out there, certainly on social media, but behind the scenes, we can see you guys are having fun on the panel, but he's got to get to you on occasion.
Yeah, no, he's an unbelievable creative guy. I'm having a blast with him. He's already gotten in trouble a few times from TNT for saying some stuff he shouldn't say, but no, he's been unbelievable. and honestly, we get mad at each other. Not we get mad. I give him zingers, but the other day, I don't know if you saw, not to get, I know we got to go, but Garnet Hathaway, when he went for the empty net, he called him a bonehead for I got mad at him. I said, are you out of your mind? Garnet Hathaway puts that puck in the net. Florida might be on their way out, right? And I don't mind taking a shot at that. So that argument was real and that's what you want. You know, you want that debatable bar, that bar, your buddies, you're yelling at each other. So, and that's what TNT wants. And we're trying to give them that sort of stuff.
Well, I'll tell you, we've had Beast on the pod, and, he likes to play the buffoon.
Yeah.
But he's not.
No.
Like that's one of the first things I think we talked about Dregs when we left was like, oh my God, he's way smarter than he lets people know. we were in Vegas at the All-Star game. I walked by a blackjack table. He's playing. So we sit down to play. Oh my God, the energy. I was exhausted in 15 minutes. I was just sitting there and I was exhausted.
Well, you see him crushing Red Bulls before the show. That's why they filmed it. I said, put this on film to show these people. He crushes 2 Red Bulls right before the red light comes on. He goes, "Let's go, boys!" And he's ready to go.
Wow,
energy guy. He's a marketing genius.
He is.
We're in Vegas. There, he gets big money to go for an hour to do some, these things. Like, it's amazing. So, but yeah, he's his hockey IQ, like Ray just said, it's a lot better than people think.
Fantastic. All right, Talk. Well, we appreciate you taking the time to join us, and enjoy the rest of the playoffs.
Thank you, man. Enjoy talking to you guys.
Yeah, keep working on the dry cleaning.
Yeah.
And Ray, this is my favorite point of the podcast. Every week, we get to raise a glass of the 44-year-old CC to Rick Tocchet for joining us in episode 33, presented by Canadian Club Whiskey. 44-year-old release is now available everywhere. And Talk can talk. He is he's perfectly suited, isn't he, for doing what he's doing. We know that he wants to coach again, and as we talked about right off the top of the podcast, the chances are strong that he's going to be an NHL head coach again. But man, talk about loving the moment too, right? Like, just having fun with the guys on the panel at TNT, swapping the stories, analyzing with, Wayne Gretzky and the group there. But you can tell as we had the conversation, the wheels of coaching are still turning, right? How he thinks and how he expresses his views of the game.
Yeah, I would say Talk is one of the most interesting guys to me because, I only knew him as a player, right? I didn't know as he got into coaching, and I didn't really know him as a person. And as a player, he was a bloody freight train, right? Like, I hated playing against him. So strong, and he was so good. And I always would look and go, yeah, that would be a good guy to have on your right wing, right? Like, lots of space with Talk, and he could score. And then you get to meet him, and my image is like literally was as a steamroller. Like, I was really surprised how deeply he thought about the game, how he communicates, how he talked. Remember when we talked to him when he was coaching in Arizona, how he talks to his players. And I'm like, man, I had no idea.
Yeah.
And so it was really interesting. And then, on TV, he's just got the spark, right? Like, he's just good at it, and he's smart. But I think if somebody knocks on the door and says, hey, would you be interested in, interviewing over here? The answer would be yes.
Yeah. Well, and I think that there would have been some mutual interest. Things were going bad around the mid-season point for the Dallas Stars, right? But timing has to work. So we'll see. There's so many opportunities. It's hard to imagine that Rick Tocchet. But he likes what he's doing too. I mean, we know he loves to coach, so chances are he'll be back. But in the meantime, he's going to have some fun. Coolbet Chris Abbott can't join us in episode 33 because he is taking a much-deserved vacation. And I don't know if you saw his tweet or not, but he literally said, I'm offline. I'm not watching. I'm not doing anything. I'm going on vacation. So
good for him.
We represent coolbet.co this week. And normally we're not very good at it, but Rob Gray, our fearless leader, has presented us with the odds going into the night. So some of these are going to be dated as people listen to the podcast or watch us on YouTube later. Carolina Hurricanes, Boston Bruins, right? Right now, they've got the Carolina Hurricanes to win the series at plus 347. That makes sense, doesn't it?
I would find it hard to believe Boston's going to win.
Yeah.
I'm going to find it hard to believe that Boston can win 2 in a row against Carolina. I think Carolina is really good.
Toronto and Tampa Bay. Toronto at essentially the same thing, plus 346. Huge win in Game 5.
That looked like an amazing night at Scotiabank Arena. At some point, Dregs, Tampa Bay can't win every game after they lose.
It's going to come to an end at some point. Yeah.
I don't know why I think it would be tonight, but I do.
Yeah.
Like that. So I don't know. I just think the teams are too evenly matched, and eventually numbers kind of flatten out. It won 16 in a row after a loss. Like eventually, it comes to an end. So that's my hockey in-depth view of that one. Just because it's supposed to even out, I think it will.
The Oilers are plus 324. That's a bit of a surprise to me. It is.
LA will get no respect ever.
Yeah.
Certainly without Drew Doughty. But in the Coach of the Year finalists, Todd McClellan has to be there. Like they played half the season with no defensemen. And here they are. They're 1 game away. Edmonton has to go in there and win without Darnell Nurse. Like that's going to be a tough win for them, even though that performance McDavid and Draisaitl put on late in Game 5 was like, like who's stopping that? Nobody.
No. All right. Plus 28, tight margin for the Calgary Flames over the Dallas Stars. That feels right.
Yeah. 3-2, 2-1. No, but 3-2, 2-1. I mean, the games are so close. It's tough to really, for me, to favor one team, even though I think Calgary's a far superior team, and I think they'll win that series.
Nice. All right. Well, Chris Abbott will rejoin us, I believe, in episode 34, unless the vacation is extended. So we'll dive a little bit deeper into round 2 and maybe have a better handle on some of the Stanley Cup lines, right? The favorites, whether they've adjusted. Yep. So we'll bring Chris Abbott back into the mix in episode 34. Time for Ask Ray and Dregs Anything. You can fire your questions to us on Twitter and Instagram at Ray and Dregs. Check us out on the website, rayandregs.com. Ray and Dregs, Ask It. Oh, I'm going to try that again. Ask Ray and Dregs Anything is presented by Doer, world's most comfortable pants and shorts. You haven't been home in a while. Did you get the package? Have you got the shorts and the t-shirts?
I don't know.
And all that?
No, nobody tells me anything. No, I don't know. It could be there. Nobody says anything.
Yeah, there'll be a collection of boxes. It's gonna be like Christmas for Ray when Ray Ferraro gets home.
Well, I will say through the pandemic,
the Doer stuff.
Yeah, through the pandemic, I thought we were going to have to repave our driveway with the Amazon driver driving in and out of it so much. So I don't know what the heck is there.
Well, you can use code RND15 and you will save 15% off everything at doer.ca. To Twitter, we go, Ray, from Sab31NYI. What the bleep is Lou Lamoriello thinking? I'm assuming he's talking about the firing of Barry Trotz.
Yeah, I mean, the answer is you don't know because he doesn't say. And then at that press conference, when he was asked, he said, well, I don't want to tell you. So
yeah.
I think Lou's awesome. I really do. I've had some really interesting conversations with him, but I think you got to offer a little more than that to your fan base, at least. this is my read. Barry Trotz had 1 year at $4 million left on his contract. And as his right is, Trotz likely goes to the Islanders and says, what's your plans about extending a contract? And the Islanders, through Lou, say, well, let's coach this year out and, and we'll see where we go. And Trotz says, well, that's not going to fly. And Lou says, well, that's not going to fly. And now the Islanders are looking for a coach. That's kind of how, I mean, I don't know that. I'm just thinking, like, why else could it be?
Yeah, and the speculation around that hire, connecting Trotz now to Winnipeg because he's a Manitoba guy, is Lou going to go to the league and perhaps bring Joel Quenneville back into the National Hockey League? Where's Mike Babcock going to land? John Tortorella? I mean, the speculation is endless, but as you alluded to, when it comes to Lou, forget it. You can speculate all you want. I mean, maybe Lane Lambert gets a crack as an NHL head coach.
By the way,
we're not going to know.
If I could jump in really quick.
Yeah.
We say Rick Tocchet's going to be behind a bench. Lane Lambert deserves a turn. He really does.
I agree. Yeah.
And so I think two of those jobs are going to get filled by those two guys.
Well, if either guy's hired as the head coach of the New York Islanders, we're going to read about it because it's not going to be breaking news. The Islanders will release it. From James, Rempel to Malden. This is a quirky question, but it's an interesting one. Do you think there should be any other individual awards for the Stanley Cup playoffs other than the Conn Smythe Trophy? And if so, Ray, what would it be?
No, there shouldn't be.
Nah, just leave it alone.
In my opinion, no, because anything, honestly, would people even care about it? Or is it just another award that you got to hand out on the ice before you get to the Stanley Cup?
Yeah. And I bet the players wouldn't want that. I think that's part of, big part of the history and the tradition of the Stanley Cup final. What else? Okay. From @Inside the Puck. We didn't talk about this in headlines because I was going to bring up the draft lottery with you. But this is the question that we have at Ask Ray and Dregs Anything. And the question is, assuming Shane Wright is taken first by the Montreal Canadiens, and that seems to be consensus, what does New Jersey do? Do they take Cooley? Do they take, what's the Slovak kid who had a tremendous...
the winger? Slafkowski?
Yeah. I mean, big dude, right? What is he, 6'4", 220? Was an absolute rock star at the Olympics. Or, if you're New Jersey, or if you're Buffalo, as an example, the Buffalo Sabres have 3 picks, right? Starting at 9, they've got 3 picks in the first round. Do you get creative? Do you package those picks and trade them off? So maybe Fitzy with the New Jersey Devils says, I don't know if I need another draft pick, but I do need a JT Miller. Or something like that, right? To give us a little bit more zip. What do you think?
I'm going to say the chances of the Devils using that pick is 55% that they use it and 45% that they trade it.
Okay.
And they can add something more immediate to their roster, which has to be their stated goal. They're young, the youngest team in the league. And but if they were to keep the pick, Cooley makes no sense for them because they have Jack Hughes and Nico Hischier. They don't need another centerman, and they certainly don't need another undersized one. Slafkowski makes all kinds of sense there. What about trading down a pick or two if you're not that sold? And then you can look at Simon Nemec, the Czech defenseman. Or David Jurasek, who's another one, and you draft a different position. But it just feels like that's a pick that can be moved.
Yeah, I mean, I spoke with the Canadian general manager earlier this week, and It's a good draft. There's nothing wrong with this draft. Maybe it doesn't have the flash that we've seen in other drafts, but his team believes that the player you're getting between 5 and 25 is very similar. And that's not a criticism of 5 through 10, because we always look at the top 10 picks. But no, the reality is it's a deep first round. So 5 through 25 is going to get you a decent first round pick. So I like the lottery only because, again, it allows us to speculate on what New Jersey might do and what the Canadian teams might do, or as mentioned with Buffalo having the 3 first round picks.
Yeah, I still think the lottery can be publicized and marketed and promoted more than it is.
Yeah, I would agree.
I think it should be more of an event somehow. Have it pregame in one arena.
Yeah.
Where, people are cheering or not cheering, and, have a little more zip to it, because it's a very determining thing for a franchise.
Yeah.
What their next picks are going to look like.
All right, that is Ask Ray and Dregs Anything. Reminder to check out the Ray and Dregs social channels for Rapid Fire. A little bit later this week, we will have another entertaining edition of Rapid Fire on the way. So as we record and as we wrap up episode 33, as you stated from the beginning, you're in New York now, but a lot going on with the remaining games here, which is going to dictate where you're headed next and how soon you can get home, and then look at what round 2 looks like, right?
Yeah, no idea where I'm headed next. I'm headed right now to go shopping because I need to refresh a couple of ties. I'm tired of tying the same ties, so I'm going to try and change up the look of the outfit and spend a me day, go for dinner. I've actually got a childhood friend who lives from Trail who lives here, so I'm going to go for dinner. We met in the 8th grade, and so her and her husband live in New York, so we'll go for dinner and catch up a bit. I'm looking forward to it.
Ooh, is the plastic coming out of the Ferraro wallet?
Well, we're in their city. I think it's only right they pay.
Of course you do. Hey, you know what? You should call Gord Miller and say, hey, Gord, can you e-transfer me?
Well, by the way, so Gord's over to the World Championships.
Yeah.
So I sent him a note yesterday. I'm like, hey, Gord, could you send me a couple of rosters? So he sends a text back. He's like, do you really want rosters? I'm like, no, I'm just trying to be a pain in the ass.
It worked.
It did.
All right, buddy. Well, we'll let you get on with your small circle day.
Thank you much, Dregs. Enjoy your Leaf game day today.
Yeah.
And we'll see where that all rolls out, and enjoy the good weather in Toronto, and we'll talk next week. Everybody, thanks for listening.
You bet. Huge shout out to our partners, Ray, who make the podcast possible, our title sponsor, and our good friends at Canadian Club Whiskey, who ask, are you over beer? Coolbet.co, the free-to-play sports and casino games website. Buy Boston Pizza. Pick it up or get it delivered to your door. Just let Boston Pizza do the cooking tonight. And by Doer, use code RND15 to save 15% off everything at doer.ca. That is episode 33 of the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast. Episode 34, we'll do the old deep dive on what's happening with the Canadian teams and look ahead to round 2 of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Be well, everybody.